A pint glass dripped on the bar when the envelope snapped open. My son's name was tied to 3 men outside, planning an accident that wasn't an accident. Then a stranger gripped my wrist and whispered, "You have 5 minutes." What would you do if your child set the trap for you? Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. My son bought me a beer and bought 3 men to make sure it was my last. The pint sweats on the bar. A manila envelope snaps open against the wood. My name is Graham, and the smile on my son's face does not reach his eyes. By the time the glass fogs, the truth is already moving into position. A hand clamps my wrist. Grip like a vice. Deacon, the barkeep with steady eyes. "They are positioning," he says. He nods toward the corner monitor. "Keep your face calm. Look with your eyes only." The feed shows the sidewalk outside, rain haloed in the neon. Ryan stands under the awning with 3 men I do not know but understand. Kane, tall and still. Brick, thick through the shoulders. Marek, quiet, scanning. Ryan passes the envelope to Kane. Money changes pockets. Heads tip once. No smiles. The monitor flickers once, then steadies. Blue tint washing faces outside. "You have 5 minutes, Deacon says. His thumb taps twice on my pulse. Back exit. Restroom window. Now. I feel the thump of my heart against his fingers. I feel the bar under my palm, solid as a verdict. I glance at the restroom door. A slow breath. I slide off the stool. Walk. Do not run. Behind me, the envelope on the bar sits open like a mouth. The hinge squeaks as the bathroom window lifts. Night air slaps my face. Rain roars in the alley like a crowd. I pull myself through the frame, knees barking, jacket snagging. Drop, roll, cold pavement, breath held. Footsteps in the front, none in the rear. Voice over, steady as a metronome. In the next 10 minutes, we will turn a family performance into felonies and show you why a boundary can save your life. The drive from Portland to Seattle took 6 hours, and my back kept the receipt. Every curve on I-5 wrote a note down my spine. I stretched at 2 rest stops, hands on the door, breathing through that dull pinch. The Ford hummed like a loyal dog. On the seat sat my battered wallet with Margaret's photo, eyes bright, hair tucked. A fall afternoon kept safe. I touched the picture at gas pumps and on long lights. Habit. A way to steer my thoughts away from blame. 12 years since she passed, and I still talk to her when decisions pile up. Ryan called last week and said we should have a beer and a talk. He sounded tired and too upbeat at once. "Come up, Dad," he said. "We will make it easy. Hope can be heavy as luggage." I loaded it anyway and pointed north. Belltown met me with wet sidewalks and streetlight glare. Ryan's townhouse matched the neighbors' in tidy brick and glass. Gia opened the door before I knocked. She hugged me with flour on her apron and rosemary on her hands. "Come in, Dad," she said, voice warm, without effort. Behind her shoulder, Ryan hovered on the stairs. His smile looked stretched, like tape used once too often. He took my bag, and the handle rattled against his shaking fingers. "Just nerves," he said, laughing at nothing. He would not hold my eyes. The keys in his pocket chimed as he shifted, a nervous metronome that marked every pause. I asked about work. "Fine," he said, then good, then something about traffic. When he thought I was not watching, he wiped his palms on his jeans the way a pitcher dries his grip before a hard throw. The room was warm, but a draft ran straight through the middle of our hello. The kitchen smelled like garlic and comfort. A pot of sauce bubbled low. Gia's lasagna rested under a foil tent, cheese collapsing into neat layers. She handed me water and a small plate of olives, the way Margaret used to set out something briny when company came. "You look worn, Graham," she said. "We will eat and you can rest." Ryan nodded along, but his gaze kept slipping to the window, then to his phone. then back again, to the window. He stepped onto the back stoop and lit a cigarette. He had quit years ago because Gia hated the smell. Now he cupped the ember with his hand and drew like the air in the room could not fill him. I watched through glass while drizzle beaded on his shoulders. He raised the cigarette like a shrug. "Almost done," he mouthed. Ash fell into the pot where Gia keeps basil. The small disrespect scraped me raw in a place no one can see. The drive left my lower back stiff, so I carried my suitcase to the guest room and lay flat for a minute. The ceiling fan ticked. Old ceilings flickered through my mind. My shop. Pegboard silhouettes for wrenches. A ledger fat with years of neat numbers. Purchase orders filed by week. Bank deposits counted twice, then sealed. We kept cameras over the bays and the register, not because I distrust people, because I distrust surprises. My back ached, so I lay flat in the guest room a minute. The fan ticked, and my shop came back. Pegboard outlines, a fat ledger, purchase orders by week, deposits counted twice, cameras over bays and register. When we upgraded, I added a hidden recorder in a broom closet. I do not distrust people, only surprises. Last month, Ryan called near midnight, his voice bright and strained. He said unexpected expenses hit hard. Everyone stumbles. He asked what I thought and waited for money. I told him my rule. I build bridges, not pits with no bottom. He said he understood. After the call, I wrote a line in my pocket notebook. Keep the door open. Keep the reins short. Gia tapped on the guest room door and brought a towel still warm from the dryer. Tea, Dad, or water? Water, I said. She lingered. Does Ryan seem off to you? He is wound tight, I told her. She nodded without surprise. He has not been. Sleeping. Work has been strange. He says he is handling it. She set the towel on the chair and let me wash my face and unkink my neck in quiet. Downstairs, the table was set with plain white plates and cloth napkins. A small vase held a sprig of rosemary and 3 daisies. Peace could have sat there. Ryan's energy made the chairs feel unsteady anyway. He jangled the keys. He laughed too loud at nothing. He started a story about a coworker's boat and then stared at the window as if the ending had sailed out of view. When Gia touched his sleeve, he startled like she had reached him from underwater. Margaret would have taken both his hands and asked a direct question. My way is slower. I list what is present and what is missing. Present. A son who invited me for a beer and a talk. A daughter-in-law. Building dinner with care. A house that wants to be kind. Missing. Eye contact. Steady breath. Ordinary ease. The keys wrote their own testimony. The cigarette wrote another. The third story waited beyond the glass and the rain. We ate in fragments. Gia kept the air level. She asked about the shop, and I told her about the regular who brings cookies, and the heat pump that finally failed, and how fixing it hurt less than ignoring it. Ryan cut his lasagna into perfect squares and moved them around the plate. He asked if my truck still ran smooth, then let the answer disappear. Half his serving went cold. His fork tapped a slow, steady rhythm, a clock without numbers. After dinner, I stood to help, but Gia waved me toward the living room. Sit, Dad. I will bring coffee. The couch remembered my shape from other visits. Framed photos lined the shelf. Ryan beside me at the shop the summer he finished high school. Gia holding a blue ribbon at the fair. I let the pictures hold us a minute longer than necessary, as if a good photograph could bank time for later. Coffee came in thick mugs. Gia asked about the drive. Ryan drifted to the window again and smoked under the overhang, careful to shield the ember. Gia's mouth tightened, then eased when he crushed it out and returned to us. We can grab a beer later and talk for real, he said. I told him I was tired from the road, but a beer sounded fine if it would settle his mind. He nodded like a man hearing a verdict he expected and feared. In my chest, I wrote the sentence that steadies me. Help is temporary. Dignity is permanent. It has guided every check I have written, and every one I have refused. It guided me up I-5 to this warm kitchen, where worry and love sit side by side. If Ryan needs a hand, I will offer a hand. If he needs my life, I will offer him truth. The clock on the stove ticked. The house settled. Behind his careful smile, the storm kept building for now. Night rain glazed the pavement until every streetlight doubled itself. The foggy lantern sat under a neon halo, windows fogged, sign creaking in the wind. Ryan touched my elbow and smiled like a truce. Beer and a talk, Dad. Nothing heavy, just you. And me. Inside, the room hummed. A ball game moved through the seventh on mute while captions kept score. A jukebox pushed a low guitar line. The bar showed rings and scratches. Voices stayed soft, the way regulars talk when everyone is known. Deacon slid 2 coasters toward us before we asked. Black polo, gray at the temples. The quiet, alert posture I know from men who have seen things and lived to pour another round. 2 drafts, please, Ryan said. Whatever is solid tonight. Deacon drew amber into cold glass and set them down. 2 second chances, Ryan said. Our glasses touched. I let the bitterness settle the road in my bones. He asked if I still keep a scorecard when I watch baseball. Not on paper, I said. In my head. He laughed. You made me track walks and errors like we were running a shop. I told him a clean ledger catches liars before they learn your habits. Work has been crazy, he said. Restructuring, people shifting. It is fine, just noisy. He lifted his glass and set it down without a sip. The door opened and he checked it with the quick glance of a man expecting someone. When he saw no one he knew, he smiled too wide. He asked about my truck and the heat pump. I gave him what he wanted, easy talk without sharp turns. Deacon wiped the bar until it shone. He set a napkin near my elbow, squared the salt and pepper, and hung a glass with a precise click. You 2 doing good? He asked. We are catching up, I said. He nodded but kept drifting a glance toward the back hall that leads to the restrooms and a service door. Ryan talked about a contractor who underbid and then quit, about a team lead who wanted metrics for everything except common sense. Half true, I thought, which still makes it half lie. He laughed at my story about Mrs. Kramer who pays in quarters wrapped in bakery paper. He described the day he hit his first home run and I fell over the bleachers filming it. He got the details right. My chest loosened 1 notch. The game showed a replay and people looked up together. I felt the tug of what used to be normal. I felt why a parent says yes to a late beer even after a hard month. You want to believe the person across from you can steer back to center. Another round, Ryan asked. I said sure. He raised his glass but drank slow. The door opened again, and this time he did not just glance. He measured. His jaw set, then softened. He asked if I ever think about selling the shop and traveling. Sometimes, I said, then told him I like the rhythm of the lift and the smell of machine oil and the old stories that ride in on worn trucks. He said the world is big and money is only paper. Deacon topped off a water. Food for you, he asked. Pretzel, maybe. Ryan waved it off. I will grab something at home, he said. He checked his watch. Bathroom? Then we can talk for real, he added, as if a real talk were a switch you flip after a quick walk. He slid from the stool with a pat to my shoulder that looked practiced. Take your time, I said. He vanished down the hallway, shoulders squared like a man headed to ask for a raise. Deacon watched him go without turning his head. He reached for the same glass he had already polished and gave it 3 more passes. The guitar line climbed and held. I looked at the ring left by my glass and wiped it with the napkin. The night felt like it was turning. My son had pulled a chair to the same side. He had laughed without anger and listened without argument. He had asked me to stay longer in the place where fathers and sons find neutral ground. Outside, water hissed in the gutters. Inside, I exhaled and took a longer drink. The restroom door clicked. The hallway light laid a pale stripe along the floor. Deacon stacked plates with a clatter. He moved to the far end of the bar, lined up 3-pint glasses, and angled a small monitor toward himself under the counter. His gaze flicked right, then left, then settled on the corridor to the rear exit. Everything looked ordinary. The bartender wiped and stacked. The game rolled through a commercial. In my chest, caution began to loosen its grip. A father forgave an ugly dinner and believed in second chances. I watched condensation run down my glass and smiled, because hope, even risky hope, tastes good when it is mixed with beer and memory. Deacon's hand closed on my wrist like a vice, firm and final. His eyes stayed on the shadowed corner under the bar where a small monitor glowed. "Look," he said, voice low. The screen showed the front door in rainy gray. Ryan stood beneath the neon with 3 men who read as trouble from a block away. Kane held himself like a man who once gave orders and never stopped. Brick was mass and angles, a neck like a piling. Marek had the stillness of a patient driver, eyes working the street. "Watch," Deacon murmured. Ryan passed a manila envelope to Kane. Brick checked his watch with a slow turn. Kane didn't thumb the stack. He waited, nodded once. Marek shifted 2 inches to open a sight line. No chatter. Tactical posture. "Ex-cop running point," Deacon said. "The big one is enforcement. The lean one is your wheelman. They've done this before." On screen, Kane drew a rectangle in the air and tapped 2 corners. Brick drifted until he filled a slice of doorway where a camera would blink past. Marek lifted his chin toward the alley, then at his watch. Ryan answered with the tiniest nod. That nod lived in my memory from bedtime bargains and curfews. It meant the plan was already set. "Hear it," Deacon said. "Accident language." His finger tapped a rhythm on the bar. "Meet here, split there, pinch from 2 sides." He curled his hand into a C and slid it past the imagined camera cone. "Flanking." He cut his eyes right, then left. Timing glances. 5-minute blocks. They are posting now. In the glow of the monitor, my son smiled like a man pleased with logistics. Kane pointed toward the lot, then to an invisible radio. Brick spread his hands as if measuring a bumper. Marek mimed a key turn and slow. Roll Deacon didn't flinch. He slid a small 5-in-1 across the wood. Dull steel, thin, ugly. "Put this in your pocket," he said. "If you freeze, you're done. If you move, move with intent. Bathroom's behind you. Window over the urinal. It sticks. That tool is leverage." The calm in him shaved the fog off my thoughts. Outside, rain slicked the doorway. Inside, the game murmured. On the feed, Kane clapped Ryan's shoulder. The 3 men peeled in 3 directions without crossing paths. Professional dispersion. I wanted to say this can't be what it looks like. 40 years of fatherhood searched for a kinder angle. The footage refused to lie. Deacon called the shapes like a play-by-play man who'd swapped ballparks for bar rooms. "Organizer," he said, and the word felt like winter. "Enforcer," and my ribs remembered. "Driver," and I pictured my truck where it always sits. "Why tell me?" I asked. "Because men like that use family as a soft door," he said. "And because after the war, I promised I'd be a hinge where a door needs it." He didn't blink. He didn't ask my name. He had already chosen a side. The monitor flipped to a sidewalk view. Ryan's face moved close to the glass as he turned for the entry. He smoothed his hair and set his jaw into a sun's shape. Deacon drew a breath and counted under it. He gave them 5. "You've got 3. The room didn't change. Laughter rose from a booth. Ice clinked down the bar. But a stranger had seen my danger before my son admitted it existed. The math of the night rearranged. Column A, what I wanted to believe. Column B, what the camera showed. Column C, what would keep me alive. Deacon shifted to shadow me from the door sight line. He pointed the tool at the hallway. "Go now," he said. "Head down. If he stops you, say your back's acting up and you need to stretch. When you reach the bathroom, lock the door. Twice." Left side of the latch is painted shut. Use the flat edge. Pry up, not out. When you drop, bend the knees. The alley is wet and will steal your footing. I pocketed the steel. It felt heavier than it should, like truth. On the feed, Ryan glanced at his phone and his mouth formed a word I knew. Now. Deacon's hand left my wrist, but the imprint stayed. A second pulse. One more thing, he said. When you choose, don't look back to see if he is watching. Looking back freezes the feet. I nodded. I rose the way you rise when you mean to walk. I laid a bill under my glass because dignity is a habit. Then I turned for the hallway and the small window that was built for air, not escape, and would have to do both. I kept my breath small and my steps steady. I rose without haste. I left a bill under the ring of my glass and slid the tool into my pocket, shoulders loose, neck easy. The hallway smelled of cleaner. I kept my eyes on the chipped blue door. Inside, I slid the bolt. One click. Then the stubborn latch. Flat edge under paint. Pry steady. I killed the light. The window waited, painted shut. Jammed the flat edge under the sill and leaned. Squeal. A breath. Another lean. The paint cracked and the frame rose a wrist's width. I shouldered under it and lifted. Cold air rushed the room. I gripped the sink, perched on the rim, and eased my hips to the rectangle. The latch scraped my jacket. I pulled the fabric free and tucked my knees. The alley accepted me hard. Wet concrete bit shin and palm. My knee flashed heat. I rolled to bleed it off and stayed small behind a green dumpster that smelled like fryer oil and rain. Mapped the alley. Back door, left. Brick wall, opposite. A camera above the loading bay, angled for trucks, not shadows. A streetlight threw a bright coin near the corner. I pictured cones of vision. I moved when the cones looked away. 3 steps, pause. 2 steps, pause. The tool sat warm against my thigh. At the mouth of the alley I listened. Rain on awnings, tires on wet asphalt, male voices, low. I crouched behind a parked pickup and slid to its tailgate. Across the street, under a smear of yellow light, Ryan stood with Kane, Brick, and Marek. He held his shoulders like a man who liked the shape of what was coming. Kane said the hour. Tomorrow at 8 in the evening. Brake failure. Clean and quick. Old truck. Gravel lot. The words landed in order. Brick asked about cameras. Ryan named angles like he had walked the block. Marek talked routes. One from the right, one from the left. Horn if a stranger turned the corner. Kane set the time again. 8. He tapped his watch as if pinning the minute to the night. Ryan's voice did the most damage. He is sentimental. The will is unchanged. He said it like a fact. He mentioned the parking space I have used for 20 years and how I will be there before dawn and after supper because habits make a man reliable. I pressed my palm to the cold steel of the bumper and let the pain in my knee become information. The plan was a machine. Ryan spoke fees. Brick grunted. Marek measured distance with his hands. Kane said final check at $750. Ryan thanked them and made a promise he could not keep about money that would arrive when grief arrived. I slid back along the truck and kept the metal between me and the street. The alley took me again. Shadows and steam and a puddle mirroring a red neon sign. I kept the wall on my shoulder and counted doors. 1, 2. I passed the service hall and went for the fence at the far end where milk crates made a ladder. The top slats were slick. I hauled over and dropped into the narrow run behind the next building. Now the map widened. Side street left. Main drag right. I chose left. I moved past a bakery dark for the night, past a studio with chalk letters fading under rain. At the corner, I looked back without lifting my head. The men had split. Ryan stood alone under the light, phone at his ear, eyes on the door of the lantern. I memorized the lot of it. 8. Brake failure. Old truck. The blind camera by the employee spaces. Kane, the organizer. Brick the muscle. Marek, the driver. Sentimental, he said. Will unchanged, he said. I filed each piece where it belonged, like a mechanic labels parts. Timing, method, names, entry, exit. I kept moving step by step, refusing panic its usual seat. The plan would not surprise me again. I turned my collar to the rain and walked into the dark, with my life in my pocket and next decision forming in a clear line. I kept the lights low and took the long way back. Wet streets, empty corners. My mirrors stayed busy. I turned where habit would not. The engine held steady while my breath kept time. The plan I heard rode alongside me. Tomorrow at 8. Brake failure. Employee lot. Names like cold tools in a clean drawer. I parked 2 houses down and killed the dome light. Rain softened my steps. The key turned clean. Inside, garlic and soap and the quiet of a home that had used up its strength. I crossed the living room and did not look toward the stairs. I carried my bag to the guest room and opened drawers the way I close a shop at night. I packed to erase my trail. Shirt, socks, toiletry kit, phone charger, the small bottle for the knee I banged on the drop. Margaret's photo moved from my wallet to my breast pocket to feel my pulse. 2 tablets for pressure swallowed dry. Bedspread smoothed. Trash can checked. Zipper closed. No trace to invite questions. At the kitchen counter, I found the grocery pad. I turned to a clean page and printed in clear letters. Gia, take the kids to your mother's at dawn. Do not wake Ryan. Do not call until you arrive. This is urgent. I will explain soon. Please trust me. Graham. I slid the note under the salt shaker and a spoon. Short facts travel fast. I paused at the fridge. Paper crowns from a birthday. A hike with a muddy dog. Handprints in paint. Proof of the people I was choosing first. I left lights off, eased the door shut, and locked it with a slow turn so the cylinder would not click. I drove away like a neighbor who had forgotten something and was headed home. I chose the far route to the freeway. No pass by the pub. No quick cut that would stack me under the same cameras. 1 extra car length. A shade under the limit. I checked the mirror the way I taught new hands at the shop. Count the cars behind. See if one stays. The city thinned. Signs for South rose and ushered me on. The first call lit the dash near the county line. Ryan. I let it ring out. 5 minutes later, another. Then unknown. Then Ryan again. Then a number off by 1 digit. The rhythm took hold. I stayed in the right lane and kept both hands on the wheel. By the time I turned into my driveway, the missed calls read 47. I shut the phone off. Silence filled the cab like fresh air after a storm. The old habit of rescue loosened its grip, replaced by something steadier than guilt and resolve. On the road, I sorted the facts and left fury for later. Kane the planner, Brick the muscle, Marek the driver. Tomorrow at 8. Brake failure staged in the employee lot near the side door. The camera that misses the corner where a truck would sit. Ryan's line about a sentimental father and a will he believes is fixed. Truth needs no heat. At a truck stop outside Olympia, I bought gas and a coffee I barely touched. I parked under the canopy and turned the truck so the plate met the camera. The clerk asked how far I had to go. Portland, I said, that was all. Back on the freeway, I planned small. Sleep, lock up, write it down. Morning, gather papers, then call records. Oregon gave me quiet. The wipers slowed. The engine hummed like an old friend who knows when not to talk. Gia would wake and find the note. She would think for half a beat and choose the kids over questions. She would move without drama, pack light, drive straight, and not call until she was safe. I asked the night to walk with her. My porch light came up when the fob chirped. Inside, the alarm beeped and then went still. Cedar and dust. A trace of eggs from the last breakfast I ate alone here. I set deadbolts and the chain on the back door. At the desk, I opened the old ledger I use and wrote like I close a month. Time at the pub, the names, the envelope, the alley. I left opinions out. I left history out. The list could travel without me. I slid the page into a manila folder with the deed copy, the policy, the spare keys, and a clean flash drive. Margaret's photo on top to tilt me toward courage. I drew the shade and looked at a block that slept like any other night. The rule returned. Fix what you can see, then fix what you can prove. Tomorrow would start with proof. I powered the phone back on and dialed 911. I kept my voice even. My name is Graham Whitaker. I am in Portland. I need to report a planned homicide for tomorrow night at my auto shop. The dispatcher asked if I was safe. Yes, doors locked. Alone. She asked for the address of the shop. I gave it. Employee lot on the east side, near the side door. She asked for the time. 8 p.m. tomorrow. She asked how I knew. I told her I overheard it tonight at a Seattle pub and listed the names. I gave my son's name first. Ryan Whitaker, 35, 5'10", brown hair, anxious, chain smokes when stressed. Then the three men. Kane, last name unknown, late 40s, lean, clean cut, posture like a cop. The organizer. Brick, big man, shaved head, scar on right cheek. The enforcer. Marek, driver type, compact, quiet, always scanning. I explained the envelope of cash, the handshake, the phrase brake failure. Make it look like an accident. I gave the pub's name and cross streets and the bartender's name. Deacon, former military. He showed me the feed. The dispatcher slowed me down and repeated each detail. I confirmed everything and corrected what needed it. She asked about weapons. None seen, but the men are professional. She asked if anyone else was in danger. My daughter-in-law and the kids live in Seattle. I left a note. They are leaving at dawn. She asked if my son had keys to my shop or house. He does not. She asked if the threat involved life insurance. Ryan believes he is my sole heir. I added that line because it is motive and because I heard his words. She issued a case number and read it twice. I wrote it big on a clean page. She said an officer would call me within the hour and that the system would flag my shop for directed patrol at first light. She told me not to drive back to Seattle tonight. She told me not to confront anyone. She asked me to meet officers at my shop at sunrise with anything I could document. Then she stayed on the line while she typed. When she released me, she thanked me for being clear. I thanked her for listening. Facts first, feelings later. I repeated it as I set up my desk. I pulled the ledger I had started and turned it into a timeline. Time I arrived at the pub. Time my son stepped outside. Time Deacon showed me the monitor. Time the three men split to positions. Time I used the bathroom and exited the window. Time I overheard the plan by the truck. Time I left Seattle. Time the calls began. Time I shut the phone off. Each line got a minute stamp. I left out adjectives. I took screenshots of my call log and text log. 47 missed calls from Ryan. 3 from unknown numbers that shared a prefix. I exported the images to a blank flash drive and named the folder by date and case number. I wrote a short note in plain words to explain what each image contained. No clutter, no argument. Facts first, feelings later. My shop recorder can be reached from home. I logged in and watched the feeds. I checked the employee lot camera. I checked the street approach. I checked the camera cones and the blind spot near the far corner of the fence. I exported the last 2 weeks for both angles. I exported a map of camera placement and a still frame of the blind spot. I labeled each file with date, time range, and camera number. I wrote out the retention window so officers would know how long before overwrite. The phone rang again. A local sergeant. He had the dispatch notes in front of him. He verified the address, repeated the plan, and asked me to walk him through the alley piece one more time. I did. He asked about Deacon's contact. I gave the pub's number and described the security system I saw in the bar. He said he would place a request to preserve video and contact Seattle to secure it. He also said a unit would meet me at the shop at first light. He advised me to arrive in daylight, to park out front, and to wait in my truck if anyone unfamiliar was in the area. He asked how I was holding up. I said I was steady. He said that was good. He told me to write down anything that surfaced in the night because small details solve big problems. He told me to sleep if I could. Then he gave me his direct number and said if I saw a car, watch my house, call at once. I printed the timeline and the short narrative. I signed and dated the bottom. I made one copy and put the original in a manila envelope with the deed copy, the policy summary, the photos of my lot, the camera exports on 2 separate drives, and the phone log images. I wrote chain of custody on the flap and left it open until morning. I set a sticky note on the printer that read one more copy before you leave. I set the case number on the envelope spine in thick marker so a tired officer could find it fast. Facts first, feelings later. I set the alarm for before dawn and put the folder by the door. The house settled. The street stayed quiet. I let the anger sit outside the room and lay down in my boots. Tomorrow, I would bring proof. Sun scraped the shop windows when I pulled into the front slot. 2 unmarked sedans rolled up behind me. Officers Reeves and Liao stepped out, alert and unhurried. I unlocked the glass door and waved them in. We kept it simple. Door locked. Lights on. Counter cleared like an operating table. Reeves clicked his body cam. Liao slid on gloves. I set the manila envelope down, last night's case number on the spine. He nodded and laid an evidence sheet beside it. I opened the flap, timeline, phone logs, camera maps, 2 drives labeled by date, policy summary, deed copy, lot photos with the blind spot circled. Reeves photographed each item in place, then again as he bagged it. Liao wrote receipt numbers and read them back. I initialed, clean and correct. Reeves asked to walk the exterior. We stepped into the cold. I showed the street approach, the gate, the fence corner that drops out of view. He took stills and short clips. Liao marked camera fields on a printout and drew an X where the blind spot lived. Back inside, they matched those frames to my map. Reeves called the bartender. Deacon confirmed the DVR, confirmed a locked backup, and agreed to hold the main unit for pickup. Reeves emailed a preservation request to Seattle and logged the call. Liao photographed my landline with the pub's number beside the name I wrote after 911. Evidence sits where order sits. Liao outlined the plan. Directed patrols would pass my house and the shop. If I saw anyone watching, call at once. They could help file an emergency protective order if Ryan appeared or threatened me. A temporary no contact could cover my addresses and phones. It would not stop all harm, but it would give officers the cleanest line to act. Reeves asked about my truck. Same lot space for 20 years. With him watching, I rolled the truck onto the lift. We photographed brake lines, steering linkages, battery cables, wheel wells, and the underside of the dash. We shot the VIN to anchor the record. If anyone touched the truck tonight, the before images would matter. Back on the floor, Liao set a small camera on the counter. Portable, motion-triggered, cellular backhaul. With your consent, we can cover the blind spot for 48 hours. I signed. She fixed the unit high on the fence post, then pulled test frames. Images arrived within seconds. The hole was closed. Reeves opened my phone, log images, and compared them to the printouts. 47 missed calls from Ryan between the Seattle city line and my driveway. Any written threats? Number. His pressure lived in tone and in the size of his asks. Reeves wrote it that way. Tone and size, insurance and will. I handed short summaries. Reeves photographed and returned them. He only wanted the existence and the beneficiary lines. Motive is a story, jury's here, he said. Tonight at 8, this lot will look ordinary, Liao said. And then it will change. We will be nearby. You will not be here at 8. You will not be alone after lunch. Answer only our calls. If Ryan appears, call 911 and stay inside. Do not step forward to talk. Speak through the door. Let the camera listen. Gia and the kids. Seattle would send a car to her mother's address and confirm they were safe. Reeves had already flagged my note. Liao added a welfare check request. They would also send preservation notices to neighboring cameras on the block. Coverage, No gaps. Seattle liaison would coordinate with our precinct throughout the day, updates by phone nightly. Reeves slid a card across the counter, his cell and the watch sergeant's line. Liao handed me a victim rights sheet and a one-page safety plan. Doors, lights, neighbors who know to call, change the route home, vary times, keep keys on you, keep fuel above half, park under a light, simple works. What do you need from me now? A calm day, Reeves said. Do small tasks. When we call, answer. When we say leave, leave. When we say come, come. Let us build the case while you protect your breath and your proof. Liao sealed the last bag. Chain of custody labels faced outward. Reeves checked the back gate and asked for a quick walk through of the office and parts room. We did it slow and methodical. Nothing missing. Nothing staged. They left the shop the way they found it. They gave the fear a job, too. I stood at the counter with my hands flat and the card where I could see it. 8 p.m. used to be closing time. Tonight, it was a trap. The difference was now on paper, with names, numbers, and a plan. Detective Patel didn't waste words. She spread a legal pad on my counter, set her laptop beside it, and said we would make the invisible web visible. She started with video. The pub's DVR. 2 exterior housings on the canopy. 1 interior dome behind the bar. Deacon had already mirrored the drive and locked the main unit in his office safe. Seattle traffic cameras covered the intersection, 1 block up and 1 block down. City street cams watched the crosswalk and the loading zone. She requested all feeds for a 90-minute window around my beer. She walked me through stills, Ryan on the front walk, Kane beside him, Brick heavy and planted, Marek with his hands in his jacket and his eyes on the corners. Timestamps matched the pub DVR within 1 second. The envelope appears in Ryan's hand. Kane accepts and tucks it inside his coat. Brick checks a watch. Marek looks at the back alley and nods. On the interior angle, Deacon's head turns toward the door at the exact second Ryan re-enters. Timelines kissed. Then the geofence. A judge signed the warrant an hour after Reeves sent the packet. The radius hugged the pub and its alley. 2 time blocks, late afternoon when the planning happened and the hour around my beer. Ryan's iPhone pinged in both blocks. Marek's prepaid device pinged in both blocks and then bounced to a tower near a paylot where Seattle pulled an ALPR hit on a gray sedan registered to Marek's cousin. Brick's phone stayed dark, but his girlfriend's sedan passed the intersection twice inside the second window. Kane's phone didn't ping, which told Patel more than a ping would have. Seasoned men leave personal devices at home. Burners do the work. Patel moved to messages. With probable cause in hand, they served Ryan's carrier and cloud provider. Text strings populated like a ledger. The tone tried to be casual, but the math gave him away. He wrote post-event assets and inheritance timeline. He wrote accident and mechanical failure instead of the truth. He sent a pinned photo of my truck in the back lot. The angle matched the blind spot. He wrote, he parks here. Every night, 8 is clean. In another thread saved under a fake company name, he listed numbers. Business sale, house sale, retirement balance. His figures weren't exact, but he believed them enough to write them. Then money. Patel printed a bank report and slid it toward me. A $200,000 cash withdrawal. 2 days before I drove north. Same branch where Ryan's paycheck deposits land. The teller's camera caught him at the counter. The bank's lobby camera caught him leaving with a bulging manila envelope. That envelope looked like the one on the pub feed. The transaction triggered a report for large currency, and the bank's fraud team added a note after the fact. Customer appeared anxious, sweaty, in a hurry. Ryan signed 2 pawn slips that same week. One for a watch I had given him when he graduated. One for a set of tools with my name burned into the handles. He sold quick and bought time. Gambling apps filled the gaps. Screenshots from a legal sports book showed losses in 5 figures over 3 months. A peer-to-peer wallet attached to Ryan's email pushed and pulled cash to accounts with cartoon names that read like shell users. A side app for offshore bets took prepaid code uploads and returned balances that went straight to zero. The pattern was the pattern. Chase, spike, crash, beg. His loan messages were worse. A contact saved as Coleman sent threats written in clipped sentences. Daily interest, daily visits. One line read, "Clock runs while you sleep." Another, "Men who collect do not ask twice." Patel circled the dates. The day he asked me for $1 million. The day he staged the beer. The day he paid Kane. We rolled my truck onto the lift again. Patel called a traffic investigator who had looked at sabotage before. He talked like a teacher. A clean brake failure in the real world leaves clues. Fluid on the inside of a wheel. A line rubbed through at a bracket where it can be seen. Heat and corrosion that take time. Staged failures look different. A flexible hose snipped where the shield hides it. A double flare crushed just enough to give under pressure. Contamination in the fluid that swells seals and makes the pedal fade. A fuse pulled on the ABS to eliminate correction. Steering failures tell tales too. A tie rod cut 90% through so it holds on the test drive and parts on the exit from the lot. A steering shaft bolt loosened and retightened with fresh tool marks. A failure that arrives exactly at 8 p.m. is rarely an accident. Cameras around the lot force the saboteur to crawl under blind spots. That is why Liao's little cell camera mattered. It turned a hole into a net. Patel kept the rhythm. Back to signals. Marek's burner left the pub area and hit a tower near a strip mall where a hardware store sold tubing cutters and nitrile gloves. A purchase for those items hit a debit card tied to a cousin's account used by Marek in 3 other camera hits. Brick's girlfriend's sedan parked near Ryan's block an hour later. A neighbor's doorbell camera caught Ryan and Brick walking toward the alley behind his townhouse carrying a fast food bag and 2 coffees. Men planning like it's a lunch break. Kane's motorcycle tag was old, but an officer who worked traffic remembered writing him up last year. The face on that stop matched the pub DVR. A small unit that runs gang intel confirmed Kane has a reputation for industrial accidents when debts go bad. Deacon's statement sealed the seams. He swore it under penalty of perjury. He wrote what he saw and what he heard. He wrote that he was a veteran. He wrote that he had no money in this. He wrote that his house has 1 mortgage and his bar is clean, and his only stake is a man who bought a beer and a son who bought a plan. He wrote that he mirrored the pub DVR because he knows how memory cards fail and how people try to make them fail. He wrote times with the precision of a bartender who keeps happy hour honest. He wrote that he told me to leave because the men outside were not the talking kind. Patel said a jury likes a witness who works for a living and speaks straight. They like a witness who did what he could before the badge arrived. Patel stacked each element like bricks on a footing. Video, location, messages, money, tools, testimony. She didn't need me to add emotion. She needed me to stay consistent. My job was simple. Keep breathing, keep records, keep away at 8. I asked her the only question that mattered to me as a father and a mechanic. How does a man make this right? She didn't pretend it was simple. We follow the money. We follow the minutes. We write it all down. We show the court what a real accident looks like and what a plan looks like. Then the law does its work. Cameras saved you last night. Paper will save you tomorrow. She closed the laptop and looked at the lift where my truck sat with clean, bright lines and fresh photos. The invisible web wasn't invisible anymore. It had dates and angles and names. It had a price tag. It had a plan pinned to it. And now it had a case number that would carry it to a judge. Detective Patel called just after sunrise. Warrants were signed, teams were staged, and she wanted me reachable while they moved. I stood at my shop counter with a legal pad and a coffee I barely tasted. Her plan sounded like the opposite of chaos. Who goes first? Who holds perimeter? Who photographs? Who bags? Who calls the judge? At Ryan's townhouse, patrol units boxed the street while an unmarked van idled by the garage. Body cameras caught Reeves at the door, one knuckle tap, one clear announcement. Police with a search warrant. The chain slid. Ryan blinked into the light, hair out of place, eyes already calculating. Officers flowed past him with calm choreography, hands visible. Step back, phone on the table. 2 blocks away, a team wedged a rented garage unit's door and froze it mid-rise. Inside felt like a race shop stripped of decals. Work light, creeper, jack, new brake line coiled on a pegboard, a hand pump with fluid still clinging to the hose. Brick lifted his palms the instant he saw muzzles. Kane stood behind the car, trying to read the angle. They were cuffed on the fender while the bench was photographed and serial numbers logged. Marek was farther out at a storage facility by the freeway. The manager produced a master key. Inside, shelves held tubs labeled in a neat block hand, cutters, bleeder kits, nitrile, tape. A tool bag lay open with the same line wrench the receipt described. 3 prepaid phones sat in a shoebox next to a notebook of passcodes and short, ugly notes. 8 p.m. back lot. Blue Ford. Make it look tired. In the townhouse kitchen, Ada Morales set her folder on the table and went to work. She reviewed the intake and called out counts. Solicitation to commit murder, conspiracy, attempted murder, given overt acts, evidence, tampering. She dialed Judge Sato on speaker while Patel summarized. Pub video mirrors, geofence pings, the cash withdrawal, texts about inheritance, a garage staged for sabotage. Sato signed an emergency no-contact order and approved GPS monitoring. Reeves stood with Ryan while paperwork printed from a cruiser. He read each line, asked if Ryan understood, and waited for a yes that sounded like it belonged to someone else. The click of the cuffs was small on video and loud in my head. I did not cheer. I remembered a boy in grass-stained jeans, then the envelope in Kane's hand, and the sentence about my truck at 8. Grief and relief arrived together and stayed. Patel called again. Meet us at your house. We are sending a locksmith. Bring your ID. I drove home like an estadian instructor rides a brake, steady and deliberate. The rain eased into a mist. A white van waited in my driveway. Ortiz stepped out with a toolbox and the quiet competence I trust in working people who know their craft. He replaced the strike with a long plate that bit deep, set a new grade 1 deadbolt, and showed me how the cylinder seated tight. He handed me 2 keys. These are the only copies, and only you have the master. We walked the side door, the back door, and the garage entry, swapping flimsy hardware for steel that fought back. He added hinge reinforcement so a pry bar would meet metal before wood, each bolt through with a solid slide. Then we handled cameras. Ortiz mounted a doorbell unit, leveled it, and paired it to my phone. He drew motion zones so the street would not ping all night, but the walkway would light up anything that moved. He added a small battery camera at the side gate and another above the garage. Inside, he factory reset the smart deadbolt, set a new master code, created a temporary guest code, and deleted every old code while I watched the log clear. Officer Liao arrived to walk the perimeter and talk safety. Directed patrols will sweep this week. If GPS alerts, units roll. Choose a neighbor and set a pass phrase. If you get a call claiming to be the court, hang up and call our number. She had me save the case number, then watched me lock each door and nodded when the bolts seated. Reeves texted that orders were served and ankle monitors fitted. Ortiz cleaned up, set the old keys on the counter, and asked where I wanted them. The trash can felt right. He smiled. New start, he said. When he shut the van, the house fell into a safe quiet. I stood in the entry and listened to the camera doorbell chime a test. My phone buzzed with a screenshot of my stoop. Only you have the master. Ortiz had said. I wrapped my hand around the new keyring. That is the point. Now. The first hearing moved faster than I expected. I sat 2 rows back with Detective Patel at the aisle. Ryan came through the side door in a county sweatshirt, an ankle monitor blinking, eyes straight ahead. Judge Sato took the bench. Ada Morales stood with a slim binder. She built the case in 3 pillars: motive, means, method. Motive was debt and the math of an imagined inheritance. Means was cash withdrawn, hired muscle, and inside knowledge of my habits. Method was a staged crash at 8 p.m. behind my shop using brake line tools recovered from a rented garage and a storage unit. Defense called it talk and misunderstanding. He said bars breed gossip and cameras lie. Morales did not raise her voice. She said discovery had landed. The pub's DVR mirrored to a drive. City traffic cams that placed the 3 men at the curb. A geofence return showing Ryan's phone inside the bubble at 2 blocks of time. Text logs with phrases like, let it look like where, and he always parks there. Pawn slips in Ryan's name. ATM footage of a $200,000 cash. Withdrawal. The clerk handed packets to counsel. I watched the defense attorney flip pages and stop at timestamps. Morales called Detective Patel. She walked through the evidence like a checklist. She explained accident language as code. Brake fade meant a cut at the line. Steering wander meant a loosened joint. Backlot meant the blind zone they had scouted. The defense objected. Speculation. Overruled. Patel pointed to screen captures where a hand signal matched the move heard on audio. She explained how geofence pings paired with video angles and how the storage unit inventory mapped to the plan. No embroidery, just facts. The judge asked if this was a one-night brainstorm or a pattern. Morales moved to the second stack, past due markers from a gambling app, loan notices that grew more urgent, text strings where accident and brake fade were used to solve other problems. Then Gia's bank screenshots. Transfers labeled help that were routed to cash within hours. Gia had complied with a subpoena the morning after she left for her mother's. The printouts went in. The room felt colder. I kept breathing slow through my nose. Bail. Morales asked for strict terms. High bond, home confinement, GPS, no weapons, no alcohol, and no contact of any kind with me or with Gia. Defense asked for a number Ryan could meet and a curfew. He said my son had a job waiting and a wife to support. I remembered her note and kept my hands flat on my knees. Sato set a bond only a bondsman would touch with collateral. She ordered GPS and house arrest. No weapons, no alcohol, no contact with me or with Gia, including through third parties or online posts. She read the terms slowly and asked Ryan if he understood. He said yes, voice rough. She warned that one violation would put him back in custody immediately. Discovery kept flowing. Deacon's sworn statement was on the record. City cameras were queued for defense viewing. The geofence data came with a protective order. Morales asked for a short setting for a preliminary hearing, saying the paper was strong enough to hold the line while lab work finished on the tools. When it was my turn, I kept it brief. I confirmed I had offered help last month. A bridge, not a bailout. I said I loved my son and would not finance crime. Then I used the sentence I had practiced in the truck. I offered help. Not this. The reporter typed. Defense declined to cross. Defense tried to frame the curb talk as grief and alcohol and bravado. Morales played a short clip from the pub feed. Cash in an envelope passed from Ryan's hand to Kane's palm. Grief does not pay in cash, she said. Method does. Patel described the rented garage and the bench laid out like a small operation. She explained the line wrench, the pump, and the fresh coil of brake tubing. She identified item numbers on receipts found in Ryan's search history. She testified that the storage unit contained bleeder kits, nitrile gloves, and burner phones set out in a row. Defense objected to the phrase set out in a row. Overruled. The photos showed it. Morales asked to admit a narrow set of prior acts to show intent and method. Judge Sato allowed the past due markers and 3 prior messages where the same accident language appeared. Gia's bank screenshots stayed in for the limited purpose of tracking money flow. The judge said the jury, when there is one, would see only what they need. But the pattern mattered now for risk. Sato closed the hearing with a clear line. Care for a parent is not license over a parent. She looked at Ryan when she said it, then at me. On him, it sounded like a stop sign. On me, it felt like permission to breathe. In the hall, Patel handed me a copy of the order and told me to keep one on my refrigerator and one in my truck. Reeves went over the safety plan again. Liao texted that patrol had rolled past my house twice that morning. Morales slid the binder under her arm and said the case would move on paper, not on anyone's temper, and that paper wins these cases more than speeches do. I walked to the elevators with the order in my hand. The paper felt light somehow. Gia stood by a window with a file hugged to her chest. We did not speak long. She nodded at the order. I nodded back. We had households to protect. The law would carry the first watch. We would take the next one. Back home, I put the court copy under a magnet shaped like a wrench. The other copy went in the glove box beside my insurance and registration. I sat at the kitchen table and wrote down what the judge had said so I would not forget. Care is not license. A boundary. In ink. The house was quiet. The camera doorbell pulsed once and went still. I let my shoulders drop. For today, the paper had held. Consequences did not arrive like thunder. They came like steady rain. By the first week after arraignment, Ryan's company placed him on unpaid leave. 2 days later, termination. His keycard stopped working at midnight and his inbox locked before coffee. The following morning, a tow truck idled outside his townhouse. The driver showed a repossession order, signed the form on his hood, and winched the sedan without drama. Bills stacked like drift. The gambling app sent final notices. A bank closed a line of credit. Fees posted on schedule. Ryan hired a bankruptcy firm. The petition listed unsecured debt, the vehicle deficiency, and a footnote about possible criminal restitution. In a hearing, Morales introduced text screenshots for context. Demands, timers, photos of cash on a motel bed. Paper spoke. The calendar moved forward. Kane, Brick, and Marek moved quicker. Their attorneys met Morales and Detective Patel about cooperation. Charges included conspiracy and solicitation of murder. They watched pub footage, street cams, geofence hits, and storage inventory. They understood the math. Each signed a plea trading prison, years for truth, under oath. Their proffers placed Ryan at the center. He chose the method. He picked the lot. He promised more money after inheritance. Deacon's name appeared in their statements, and his account matched the video. Gia stayed gone. The emergency order gave her quiet. A victim advocate met her at the courthouse and built a safety plan. New phone, new email, new passcode on the garage keypad. The advocate referred her to counseling and a small group for families dealing with coercion and debt. Gia spoke softly at first, then steadier. When the subpoena arrived, she brought bank screenshots and sat with Patel to mark which transfers were household and which were Ryan's side accounts. She cooperated without theater. Friends watched and drifted. The softball thread went silent, then split into another without him. A neighbor who once borrowed tools pretended not to see. People who had repeated Ryan's line about a worried father stopped telling it. Narrative control shifted from performance to record. At barbecues and break rooms, the sentence changed. He is trying to help his dad became he planned an accident for inheritance. The weight of the words slowed gossip. Most people let documents and dates do the talking. I kept my world small and lit. The shop stayed open. I changed my routine, parked under the front camera, and locked the back gate at dusk. I posted the judge's order by the time clock and told my 3 employees to call 911 first, me second. Reeves swung by at opening and checked the lot. Liao called weekly to adjust camera angles and reminded me to log contacts. Patel requested 2 more clips from the east side. I exported them. Facts first, feelings later. Ryan tested the order. A restricted call hit my phone. The block held. An email with no subject arrived. I forwarded it to Morales and deleted it. He posted on a private page about forgiveness and misunderstandings. Someone screenshotted it and sent it to Gia, then to Patel. A violation hearing landed within a day. Judge Sato read the post, checked GPS points, and clicked her pen once. Back in custody, she said. The deputy took him through a side door. Kane's plea hit the docket first. 7 years and cooperation. Brick followed with 6. Merrick took 5 and removal proceedings after time served. Their proffers painted clean lines. Ryan picked the date because weekends meant fewer trucks behind my shop. He picked brake failure because he knew I serviced my own rig and would troubleshoot alone. He picked the blind angles because he had helped mount early cameras as a teenager. Morales read the statements without heat. The court admitted them. The record grew. Gia's separation shifted from temporary to protective. Her church organized meals and rides. Co-workers walked her to her car after late shifts. She took a Tuesday class on money basics, built a spreadsheet with a counselor, and closed the last joint card. The group applauded when she opened an account in her own name. She slept better. I thanked Deacon through Patel. The pub upgraded cameras and set. Nightly backups. The city attorney used our case in training on elder abuse and inheritance crimes. By month 3, the story found its size. Ryan's old friends drifted to other circles. Creditors stopped calling the shop. Gia met me once at a courthouse vending machine to exchange a box of family photos. We spoke quietly and wished each other sleep. The order stayed on my fridge under a wrench magnet. The house felt like itself again. Consequences did not heal the heart. They drew the boundary so healing could begin. I slept through one night. For now, that was enough. The first morning home, I cleaned like the house had caught its breath and wanted mine. I cleared counters and wiped until lemon erased what I called worry. A faint kettle scorch marked the stove. I scrubbed until it faded. I opened the window for cool air and tossed the sponge. Then I set the kitchen to rights. Plates in stacks, knives in their slots, Margaret's mug on its hook, ready for tea. I exhaled and let the quiet stay. In the garage, order became the way back. I pulled bins down and spread tools on a folding table, sockets grouped by size, torque wrenches on hooks. I labeled drawers with the label maker from decades of work. Oil filters, belts, fuses, clamps. I coiled cords and tied them with Velcro. Nothing loose, nothing that could hide a mistake. When I finished, the pegboard looked like a diagram. Calm returned as rows clicked into place. I tested the camera doorbell, then the side cams and the garage interior. Ortiz had aligned the front. I fine-tuned tilt until walk-ups centered and the street edge held true. I named zones so alerts meant something. Porch, drive, shop gate, alley. I walked the lot and adjusted until motion matched reality. Cloud backups on, retention 60 days, push alerts to me only. A battery backup under the desk, system steady. By noon, I sat with a pad and laptop and turned to what no wrench could fix. I froze my credit at 3 bureaus and added fraud alerts. I opened a password manager and migrated logins for banking, utilities, vendors, and health portals. Random strings, unique for each. I turned on 2-factor and printed backup codes. I called the bank and set a password and a note requiring in-person ID. The manager thanked me for treating caution as normal. Alvarez came after lunch with a masonry bit and the calm of a neighbor who has anchored safes. Ortiz arrived with the safe and a level under his arm. We chose the corner behind the tool chest where studs meet slab and measured twice. Ortiz marked the bolt pattern. Alvarez drilled while I held a shop vac. The safe was small, heavy, and rated for fire. We anchored it and checked the door for swing. "Only you have the master," Ortiz said, tapping the dial. No spare with me, no spare with him. That is how you keep a promise. Alvarez wiped dust from the baseboard and nodded. If anyone asks for access, ask a judge, he said. Until then, lock your life where it belongs. I nodded and felt the weight settle right. Inside went the deed, the will, the truck title, the passport, a note about boundaries, and a thumb drive with camera exports and case numbers. I added Margaret's ring in its velvet box because things deserve quiet. I wrote a card, listing contents and date, and slid it behind the panel. Then I spun the dial, felt the tumblers settle, and let the click stand. Keys came next. I gathered every spare from the kitchen drawer, the junk bowl by the door, the nail in the garage, and the fake rock. I cut what I no longer needed and took the rest to the hardware store to recycle. The keypad codes were already changed, but I deleted the old entries and left a single line in the log. Access me. For the first time in months, my key ring felt light and true. I stopped carrying guilt shaped like a brass copy. There were a dozen small repairs I had been ignoring. I tightened the hinge that squeaked at the back door and replaced a cracked outlet cover. I mended a loose chair rung and rehung the frame in the hallway so it sat level. I washed the throw from the couch and aired the rug over the porch rail. Little things, done without hurry, reminded me the house answers to care, not fear. In the evening light, the rooms looked like themselves again. I made a simple supper: eggs, toast, half an avocado. I set Margaret's mug under the kettle and brewed chamomile. I ate at the small table by the window and watched the camera feed slide across the phone with nothing but the streetlight and a cat that owned the sidewalk. I did not jump at the hum of a car or the click of the ice maker. When I finished eating, I put the phone on the counter, screen down, and left it there. Night came quiet. I locked the doors and checked the deadbolts by feel, not out of fear, but because this is what stewardship looks like. I brushed my teeth, placed the phone on the dresser, and did not bring it to bed. I lay on my side and looked at the photo on the nightstand. Margaret in a red scarf at the coast, hair blown wild, eyes narrowed at the sun. I said a small promise to the room. Help is temporary. Dignity is permanent. Then I let the dark hold me, and for the first time in weeks, sleep came without the phone on my chest. Morning brought a call from Mara, a travel editor and old friend. A feature slot opened for a Northwest Road food series. 5 short pieces, real cooks, no gimmicks. Can you take it on 2 weeks' notice? Graham looked at the quiet house. In spring, he had told her no when family chaos swallowed the calendar. He said yes now. Steady, simple, yes. He stepped into the small office, plain by design. Margaret's bookcase filled the back wall. Behind the middle shelf was a false panel he had built years ago. He eased it out and set it on the desk. Inside waited the life he kept quiet. Folders labeled in black pen, reviews, routes, contacts, release forms, receipts for small stipends he never spent, a roll of cash for tips and tolls, 2 backup drives, camera bodies in soft wraps, lenses and mics. He set the gear out in order. He cleaned glass with slow care. New memory cards clicked into place, batteries lined up on a charger. He checked the shutter count on the older body and chose the newer one for the road. He clipped the mic into the shoe and tested a whisper in the hallway. He opened a fresh binder and built a checklist: fuel, food, motels, backup routes, extra copies of permits. He opened a spreadsheet and sketched a budget with margins for the unexpected. It felt like breathing right. Mara texted a short brief: 3 states, 5 stops, a truck stop bakery off Interstate 84 that sells pie by the slice to long-haul drivers, a fish shack near Astoria where locals line up in the rain, a Basque cafe in Boise with lamb stew on Thursdays, a taco bus in Yakima that closes when they sell out. Graham smiled and traced the map in his head. Miles he knew, kitchens he respected. He booked what spring had postponed. a compact rental for the Idaho leg so the truck could stay safe at home, motels with doors that face the lot so gear stays near. He used points saved for travel and watched the totals land where they should. He set alarms for golden hour at each stop. He sent Mara a clean itinerary with drive times and rain notes. He printed a single page that said trip plan and slid it into a clear sleeve. Before lunch, he wrote to Gia. He kept it short and kind. I hope you and the kids are well. Here are resources that can help right now. He listed the victim advocate's number, the counseling clinic near her mother's house, a legal aid link about protective orders, and the case number for updates through the officer. He added one line. I cannot discuss the case or provide money. I wish safety and peace for you and the kids. Please use the support offered to you. He pressed send. No apology, no anger. He called his neighbor Alvarez and said, Thank you again for the safe install. While I am on the road, would you keep an eye on the porch? He asked. Alvarez said sure and told him to bring back a slice if that truck stop pie lived up to its reputation. Graham laughed, the kind he had missed. He texted Deacon a simple note. Thank you. You did more than most sons would. Deacon replied with a thumbs up and one line. Enjoy the miles. He set a mail hold with the post office and paused the paper. He left a printed travel plan near the safe and locked the office. He placed a spare house key in a small envelope for Alvarez in case a storm threw a branch or a pipe burst. He checked the cameras one more time because he liked things exact. Then he packed light. 2 shirts that travel well, jeans, boots he could stand in all day, a windbreaker, socks, a hat, and Margaret's scarf for cold mornings. Afternoon light cut across the driveway as he loaded the trunk. He tucked the binder behind the seat and set the camera bag beside it. He started the engine and listened for anything off. The truck answered with a steady idle. He pulled out and turned toward the highway. First stop, the bakery with pie slices for drivers who live by the mile. He let the dial find AM. The road opened ahead, not an escape, an arrival. A life on his terms again, finally. Silence isn't love. Boundaries are. Graham says it when the house is quiet and the porch light clicks on. The sentence sits like a familiar tool, firm without cruelty. It reminds him that love needs walls and doors and a lock that turns. He thinks about how close he came to calling silence mercy, how often he swallowed questions because he wanted peace. How he looked past small lies to protect a bigger story about family. Elder abuse can wear family language. It comes dressed as duty or loyalty. It borrows words like father and son and turns them into levers. The antidote is evidence, timestamps, camera angles, bank slips, a bartender's clear memory. He keeps a mantra, facts first, feelings later. The pub night taught him that a clean line saves a life. A stranger's hand on his wrist protected him more than his own son's promises. That is hard to admit. He admits it anyway. He will not varnish the truth to make it easy to carry. Clear names, clear actions, clear choices. Loving adult children as adults means offering respect and expecting it back. Invite responsibility. Decline subsidy. Help is a bridge, not a residence. A loan has terms. A favor has a finish line. When a line is crossed, involve the law. Early, calmly. Write down places and times. Ask for a case number. File protective orders. Change locks. Accept directed patrols without shame. Boundaries are not betrayals. They are care that refuses confusion. He thinks of Gia leaving at dawn with the kids. He hopes her courage grows. He hopes counseling unwinds the knots tied around storms. He hopes she learns the sentence. Silence isn't love. Boundaries are. He talks to Margaret while he oils the back hinge. I promised you to keep this place peaceful. I let it slip. Not again. His yes means yes again. His no has weight again. The house takes that in, like joists settling after wind. He moves a chair back to its corner and feels it as a prayer. He writes one line in a small notebook by the phone. Your choices, your consequences. He will use it the next time a story arrives dressed as an emergency. He will listen. He will ask for documents. He will offer what he can without setting himself on fire. He will say no without a speech. He will let people carry the paths they choose. He keeps routines that hold him. Morning coffee in the shop office before the bay doors roll up. A lunch walk past the used bookstore where the owner waves. A Friday call to Alvarez for weather notes. A text to Deacon that reads, "Be well." Routine is not small. Routine tells the body it is safe to stop bracing. There will be stories told about him. The man who turned his back. The father who should have done more. He will not argue. He will keep receipts. He will let the record speak and let time do its quiet work. He will thank the professionals who showed up with calm hands and clear words. He reviews the lesson. Elder abuse can be a smile backed by a spreadsheet, a hug followed by a forged signature, Sunday dinner with a side of coercion. Evidence is the antidote. Good light, good dates, good names. The truth does not shout. It accumulates. At night he leaves the phone on the kitchen counter. He opens a window an inch when the air is cool. He reads 3 pages and turns off the light. Some nights he dreams of rain on bar wood and a window latch that resists then gives. He wakes and smiles. The latch gave. He climbed through. He chose a hard truth and a longer life. Silence isn't love. Boundaries are. He says it again, softer, pleased with the way it lands. It will carry him through the next test and the one after that. Peace kept with strength honors Margaret better than peace kept with fear. Love with a lock can still open the door when it is safe. He believes in the next mile, the next meal, the next yes he chooses freely. Evening rain hushes the street until it sounds like the ocean in a seashell. Graham stands inside his doorway and turns the new deadbolt. Metal meets metal with a steady click, the kind of sound a house remembers. He lingers there a second, palm on the cool plate, feeling how the small motion changes everything. The porch camera hums. The hall is clean. No shoes lined like little threats. No shadows waiting for a midnight argument. He walks to the kitchen. The cookbook Margaret loved waits on its stand, wide at the page with her notes about thyme and butter. He slides an envelope between those pages. Boarding passes. A short trip he had promised himself and kept deferring. He thinks of the road food column that will start with a diner on Highway 101 and end with a key lime pie he has not tasted yet. He smiles because the plan is his alone. He plates a simple dinner, roast chicken, green beans, a slice of sourdough he baked on Sunday. He sets one extra plate across from his seat. Not for Ryan, for hope that minds its manners. Hope can stay if it follows the house rules. He sits. He bows his head for a quiet beat that sounds like gratitude without pretending nothing hurt. One candle. The good matches. The wick catches and lifts a calm gold. The rain softens. The walls stop bracing. The breathing in the room is only his. He does not check the phone. He does not wait for footsteps. He chews slowly and lets the silence turn warm. When he is done, he washes each dish, dries it, returns it to the right place. The lock is set. The window is cracked. The bed is turned down. The night is simple, and that simplicity feels like a win. In the bedroom, the small safe sits, bolted in the closet. The key hangs on a hook labeled me. His wallet holds the itinerary and a short note for Gia with phone numbers. Tomorrow, he drives south. Tonight, he lets peace finish its work. Your turn. If your child invited you for a beer while hiring men to stage an accident, would you pay or press report? What would you say in that moment to protect yourself without escalating the danger? Drop your answer in the comments and type the exact line you will keep ready for next time. If this story helped you hold a boundary, tap like so YouTube shows it to someone who needs it, and subscribe for more stories about love, limits, and late-in-life courage. Share your own boundary. Win big or small. Did you change locks, call 911, freeze credit, or simply say no and stick to it? Your experience could be a lifeline for many. Tell us where you are watching from and the time right now. It helps us reach more seniors. Next up, a niece moves in to help and registers the deed in her name. We will show how a county clerk, 3 emails, and a doorbell camera unwound the scam and put the house back where it belonged. Turn on notifications so you do not miss it. And remember, it is not betrayal to protect yourself. It is love with a backbone.